everything. Before we begin this amazing story, we would love for you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to get notified when we drop new stories. Now enjoy. Kyoma pressed her back against the wooden wall, knees tucked to her chest, eyes fixed on a small crack where light slipped in. The space stank wet fur, dried urine, rotting leftovers, and the chains that held the dogs rattled whenever they stirred. But today, they were silent. Even they seemed tired of it all. She counted again in her head. It was day 27. Every morning, before the village stirred, Auntie Nkairu would wake her with a sharp knock on the side of the kennel and a quiet hiss. No shouting. No yelling. Just that hiss, as though what she was doing had to be hidden. Like she herself knew it was wrong. Kyoma didn't scream anymore. Not since the first week. Screaming made her hoarse, and no one listened. Nobody ever came. Not Mama, not Papa. They had left for Lagos and promised to come back. That was a year ago. Auntie Nkairu took her in. At first, it was okay. Then she changed. At school, Kyoma lied. Said she stayed with her aunt because her parents traveled for work. That they talked to her every weekend. Her voice always shook when she said it, but nobody asked. Nobody looked close enough to see her bruises or the red lines around her wrists from when Auntie tied her hands behind her back. This morning, the sun hadn't even risen when Auntie dragged her by the arm to the backyard. No words. Just a tight grip and her face hard like iron. The dogs barked once, then quieted when the door slammed shut behind her. She didn't cry today. There were no tears left. She remembered when Auntie used to smile. When she would plait Kyoma's hair in the sitting room while playing old music. Back then, her voice was warm. She would fry akara and sneak extra pieces into Kyoma's plate when Uncle wasn't looking. That was before he left too. Everything broke after that. Now, Auntie spoke only with her hands. Slaps. Pushes. The cane. Always careful never to mark her face. Kyoma knew she did it on purpose. Nobody would believe a child who looked fine. Inside the kennel, time moved like it was dragging something heavy. She had carved tiny lines into the wooden wall, one for each day she stayed in here. Some days she stayed the whole night. Some days she came out to cook and clean, then went right back in. And some days, like today, Auntie didn't bother letting her out at all. Kyoma turned her head and stared at the bowl near the corner. Cold white gari and a few spoons of soup with a smell that made her stomach twist. Flies hovered around it. She hadn't eaten since yesterday, but the hunger didn't burn anymore. It just sat in her belly, quiet and slow. A sound came from outside. The gate. Her heart skipped. A car maybe. No, too early. She crawled forward, peeking through the small hole in the wood. She saw Auntie. Dressed neatly. Bag over her shoulder. She was going out. Kyoma knew what that meant. Long hours in here. Silence. Darkness. Then suddenly, something strange happened. Auntie turned, looked around, and paused. She opened her bag and took something out. A phone. Kyoma's eyes narrowed. That wasn't her usual phone. This one was smaller, old. Auntie held it in her hand for a few seconds, then walked over to the side of the fence and dug into the red sand with her fingers. Kyoma strained to see. The hole wasn't deep, but she pushed the phone inside it and covered it back quickly. Then dusted her hands and walked off like nothing happened. Kyoma's mind raced. Why would Auntie bury a phone? And why not just throw it away? When the gate clicked shut, silence returned. But this time it felt louder. She stared at the spot for a long time. Then something inside her stirred. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear either. It was a strange kind of knowing. Like when a door opens just a little, and you can finally breathe something different. That night, she didn't sleep. She watched. She waited. The dogs, used to her now, didn't bark anymore. And when the moon was halfway through the sky, she quietly pushed at the wooden plank near the bottom of the kennel. The one she had loosened weeks ago. Just in case. The gap was narrow, but her body had grown thinner. She lay flat and slid through, belly on dirt, heart thumping so loud she was sure the night would hear it. Kyoma stood outside the kennel for the first time in days. Her bare feet on the earth felt strange. She turned to the spot Auntie had buried the phone and started digging. Her fingers bled. But she didn't stop. When her hand brushed metal, her breath caught. She pulled it out. There it was. The phone. Still wrapped in a small black cloth. She didn't know what she was going to do with it yet. But something had shifted. She felt it in her chest. For the first time in a long time, Kyoma had something. Something that didn't belong to Auntie. Something that could change everything. Kyoma wiped the phone with the edge of her torn wrapper, her breath shaky, heart pounding like a drum against her ribs. The cloth around it smelled of soap and pepper, Auntie's kitchen scent. The old device felt warm in her palm, as if it carried some kind of secret heat. She glanced at the kennel, then back at the gate. No light from the house. No sound. Just her and this little piece of power. She didn't know if it would turn on. She didn't even know how to unlock it. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that Auntie hid it. That meant it was important. And if something was important to Auntie, it could mean something for her too. She crouched low in the dirt and tapped the side. The screen stayed black. She pressed again, harder this time. Still nothing. Her heart dipped, but she didn't stop. She sat under the tree at the edge of the compound, not that tree, not the kind you read in books, just a crooked tree with branches that clawed at the air like they were hungry for something, and tried again. She pressed and held the small round button on the side. A flicker. Then light. Her breath caught. It was locked. A blue screen, a place for 4 numbers. She stared at it like it would open if she just wished hard enough. 4 digits. That was all that stood between her and whatever Auntie had buried. She tried once, her birthday. Nothing. She tried again, Auntie's birthday. Still nothing. Too many tries could lock it forever. She held her head in her hands and let the cold air wash over her face. Then she heard it. A soft groan from the kennel. One of the dogs shifted. She didn't move. She just sat, thinking. Waiting. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. Then something sharp touched her brain like lightning. Uncle Obinna. He used to use a 4-number code for his car. She remembered one evening he asked her to help him press it while he was carrying a big sack. 1-1-0-5, May 11th. His birthday. She tried it. Click. The screen lit up and the phone opened. She didn't breathe. She didn't blink. She just stared. It was real. The wallpaper was a picture of her. Her face when she was younger, chubby cheeks, cornrows, eyes wide like she trusted everyone. She remembered that day. Uncle had taken her to a small amusement park near the highway. He bought her a balloon and told her, "Smile, Noir M. Let them see how bright your face is." And she had smiled. The tears came then, quietly, not from pain but from remembering who she used to be. Before the silence. Before the kennel. Before the strange way Auntie changed. The phone had messages. She opened the inbox. Most were empty. Then she found one, hidden in the drafts. It was unfinished. It read, "If anything happens to me, don't trust NK." It ended there. Kyoma's fingers shook. Her mind went into a spin. Who was it meant for? What was supposed to happen? She checked the call log. Only one recent number. Dialed again and again. Same number, no name. She didn't call it. Not yet. Her ears caught a faint noise. A soft shift in the wind. Then, the metal gate. Her head snapped up. Auntie was back. She jumped up, wrapped the phone in the cloth again, and ran to the side of the chicken coop. She dug fast, shallow, then dropped it in and covered it with dry leaves. Not deep. She needed to reach it again. She slipped back toward the kennel, crawled through the gap, wiped her hands on the ground, and pulled her knees to her chest just as the back door opened. Footsteps. Slow. Confident. Then the latch of the kennel creaked. Auntie peered inside, torchlight sweeping across Kyoma's face. "You eat?" she asked. Kyoma nodded slowly. Auntie didn't respond. She closed the door and locked it again. No smile. No warmth. Just eyes that looked through you. Kyoma waited till her footsteps faded into the house before she exhaled. Her heart was beating too fast, but she smiled a little in the dark. She had something now. The next day, everything was slower. Auntie didn't take her out. Didn't say a word. Just dropped a piece of yam and left. The hours crawled. But Kyoma had made a plan. When night came again and the sky turned silver, she slid through the gap once more and ran barefoot to the chicken coop. The phone was still there. She wiped the screen and looked at the number again. It was calling her, silently. She pressed it and held the phone to her ear. It rang once. Twice. Then a click. A voice. "Hello." Kyoma froze. It was a man. Deep voice. Not angry, not scared, just surprised. "Who is this?" the man asked. Kyoma swallowed. Her throat was dry. "My name is Kyoma," she whispered. "I found this phone." Silence. Then the man said slowly, "Kyoma? You're Obina's niece." Her blood turned to ice. "Yes." "Where are you right now?" She hesitated. She didn't know if she should trust him. But something in his voice sounded real. Solid. Like he had been waiting for this moment. I'm at Auntie Kairu's house. She locked me inside the kennel again. Don't say another word," he cut in, suddenly sharp. "Don't let her hear you. Don't tell anyone you found the phone. I need you to listen to me very carefully, Kyoma. That phone, it wasn't supposed to be found." Kyoma gripped the device tighter. Her stomach churned. "Who are you?" she asked. There was a pause. Then he said, "I'm the reason your uncle disappeared." Kyoma blinked hard, heart racing. Her legs gave way and she sat in the dirt, phone pressed against her ear like it was part of her body. "I need to know everything," she said, voice barely a whisper. The man exhaled, long and tired. "It started the night he found out what your auntie was really doing behind closed doors." Kyoma didn't speak. She didn't breathe. She just listened. And slowly, a new world began to open. A darker one. And it was only the beginning. The line went quiet for a few seconds. Kyoma thought maybe the call had dropped. She pulled the phone back to check, but the timer was still running. "You're still there," she whispered. "Yes. I had to be sure you were alone." The man's voice was calmer now, but behind it was something heavy, like he was dragging memories he didn't want to carry. Kyoma glanced around the compound. The night was still. No footsteps. No sounds from the house. The dogs weren't barking. She leaned against the coop and brought the phone closer. "Tell me what you meant," she said. "What did Uncle find out?" The man took a breath. "Your uncle was supposed to meet me the day before he vanished. He had discovered something about Nkairu. Something dangerous. He recorded it. Voice memos, videos, even messages. That phone in your hand was his backup. He told me if anything ever happened, he'd bury it." Kyoma's mouth felt dry. But why would Auntie hide it? If it's dangerous for her. Because it proves she's not who everyone thinks she is. Kyoma frowned. What did he record? The man hesitated. He found out she was working with someone. A man from town. They were doing things, stealing, laundering money, moving things through people's homes without anyone knowing. He told me he suspected she used his name to open an account. But what scared him most was the list. What list? Kyoma asked. Names. Contacts. People she was blackmailing. Threatening. One of the names on that list was a commissioner. Another was a man from the police. Your uncle didn't know how deep it went, but he was scared. Really scared. Kayoma's fingers curled around the phone. Her pulse throbbed behind her ears. It didn't make sense. Auntie Kairu had always seemed quiet, private, strict, yes, but not someone who would. No. She thought about the bruises. The locked kennel. The hidden phone. She had been wrong. Auntie wasn't just angry. She was hiding something bigger than anger. I need that phone, the man said, snapping Kayoma out of her thoughts. Everything might still be in there. Messages. Files. I can help you, but you have to be careful. If she even suspects you've seen what's inside, she'll hurt me, Kayoma finished for him. There was a pause. Yes. Kayoma's breath trembled as she looked at the house again. A curtain moved slightly. A shadow passed behind it. She ducked down quickly, heart punching her chest from inside. I can't stay out here much longer, she whispered. She wakes up sometimes to check. All right. I'll call again tomorrow night. Same time. Hide the phone somewhere she'll never think to look. And Kayoma, delete the call history. Now. She nodded, even though he couldn't see. Then ended the call. She opened the recent calls and deleted the number. Her fingers moved fast. Then she wrapped the phone again and pushed it deeper into the dirt under the coop. She padded it with old feathers and dry leaves. Covered it all. When she crawled back into the kennel, she didn't cry. She lay on her side, eyes open, staring at the thin crack in the wood where moonlight spilled through. Her thoughts didn't rest. The silence wasn't empty anymore, it was full of questions. The next day started different. Auntie Kairu didn't speak as she dragged her out of the kennel. She didn't slap her or scold her. She just said, "Get dressed. We're going out." Kayoma froze. She never went out with Auntie. Never. Why? She asked quietly. Auntie stared at her for a second, then said, "I want people to see you. So they'll stop asking." Her voice was too calm. That made it worse. Kayoma put on her faded skirt and white blouse. The blouse had a small tear near the side. Auntie didn't fix it. She probably wanted people to see it that way. They got into the old grey car and drove toward the market. Inside the car, Auntie played loud gospel music. She didn't speak. Her eyes stayed straight ahead. Kayoma sat stiffly, glancing now and then at her side profile. She looked like someone who had practiced being normal. Her movements were too perfect, too rehearsed. At the market, Auntie greeted people with smiles and laughter. "This is my niece, Kayoma," she said over and over again. "She's shy. Her parents are still in Lagos." Everyone smiled and nodded and told Kayoma she looked like her mother. She nodded back, heart cold in her chest. They bought tomatoes, pepper, palm oil, salt. Auntie chatted and joked with the women in the stalls. No one knew. No one could ever guess. On the way back, Auntie's mood changed again. The laughter was gone. She didn't speak a word the whole drive. When they got home, she handed Kayoma a broom. "Clean the compound. And don't touch that corner by the coop." Kayoma nodded slowly. Her stomach twisted. She waited till Auntie went inside, then swept the compound. Her eyes stayed on the coop. She swept closer, a little at a time. Auntie didn't come out. She bent quickly, shifted the leaves slightly, just to check. The phone was still there. At night, the man called again. This time, she picked before the first ring ended. "I only have a few minutes," she whispered. "I found something," he said. "The man your auntie was working with? His name is Chief Derugo. He's connected to land scams and missing people reports." And Obinna had a recording of their conversation. Kayoma felt her stomach turn. "Can I listen to it?" "Find the files in the phone. There should be a folder called Schoolwork. Obinna hid them there. If it's still there, we have evidence." "I'll check," she said, already planning how she'd sneak out. "Kayoma, you're the only one who can end this. If anything happens to that phone, I won't let anything happen to it." He was silent for a moment. "You're brave." She smiled faintly in the dark. Not because she felt brave, but because no one had said that to her before. She ended the call, dug out the phone, unlocked it. Her hands shook as she opened the file manager. There it was. A folder named Schoolwork. She tapped it. 5 audio files. One was labeled Chief, Backyard. She played it, her heart in her throat. The voices were faint, crackly. Then she heard Uncle Obinna. "You said the commissioner would keep quiet. I don't trust him." Then another voice. Deep. Greedy. "As long as he gets his cut, he'll stay in line. Your wife knows what she's doing. Don't act like a coward." Obinna's voice again. "She's not my wife. Not anymore." The clip ended. Kyoma sat there frozen. Her uncle knew. He had found out everything. And now she had the proof. Her hands closed around the phone. She didn't know what she would do next, but she knew one thing for sure. This story wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about exposing the truth. And she was ready. That night, Kyoma barely slept. She lay curled in the kennel, eyes wide open, hands tucked tightly between her knees to keep them from shaking. The cold air didn't bother her. Not the hunger either. What gnawed at her now was the weight of what she had just heard. Her uncle had known. He had tried to fight it. And now, he was gone. She closed her eyes, but instead of sleep, she saw his face, Obinna's kind eyes, the way he used to call her Noir M with pride, even when she spilled pap on his shirt or forgot to lock the gate. He never shouted. He never raised his hand. And he never, ever would have left her behind. But Auntie Nkairu did. And now Kyoma understood why. In the morning, the house was silent. Too silent. No loud slippers dragging across the floor. No orders barked. No water splashing. Kyoma listened, waited, then finally pushed open the kennel door with her foot. It creaked softly. She stepped out. The yard was empty. The car was gone. Auntie had left. Kyoma's heart thumped. She didn't waste time. She sprinted barefoot to the coop, dug out the phone and ran to the corner behind the outdoor bathroom where the wall had a small crack. She squeezed in, sat on the dirt, and pulled up the files again. There were 4 more audio clips. She clicked the second one. Auntie's voice came through, calm but sharp. "If he tells anyone, I'll deal with him myself." The man, Chief Derugo, laughed. "You're brave, Nkairu. But be careful. He has people who still believe in him." Auntie replied, "Then I'll break their belief." One by one. The recording ended. Kyoma felt her stomach twist. She had heard Auntie's voice all her life. But not like that. That voice didn't belong to someone who braided your hair or cooked egusi soup on Sundays. It was someone else entirely. Cold. Calculating. She played the third. More threats. More talk about money. Land documents. Bank transfers. But then the 4th clip made her stop breathing. It was Uncle Obinna again. "I don't care what you say, Nkairu. Kyoma is not part of this. If anything happens to her, you'll do what?" Auntie snapped. "Run to the police. They won't listen. They know me. I've been covering your useless debts for years. Don't act holy. You think this is about money?" Obinna's voice cracked. "You've lost yourself." "No," she said, laughing lightly. "I found myself. And this time, nobody's going to stop me. Not even you." The clip ended abruptly. Kyoma's hands tightened around the phone. She played the last recording. It was just footsteps. Fast ones. Breathing. Then Obinna's voice, low and urgent. "If you're hearing this, something's gone wrong. My name is Obinna Umedi. I am not missing. I've been set up. Nkairu is dangerous. Please, if you care about my life, protect Kyoma." And that was it. No more. Kyoma sat there for a long time, phone in hand, until her legs went numb. The silence around her was thick, heavy like a blanket made of stones. Her chest rose and fell, but she wasn't breathing right. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. She wiped her face with her elbow. She didn't even realize tears had started falling. For the first time, she understood that her uncle might be dead. She stood, legs shaking, and walked back to the coop, carefully hiding the phone again. Her hands moved with purpose now. No panic. Just something deeper. Determination. That evening, Auntie returned with shopping bags and a forced smile. "Kyoma," she called sweetly. "Come out. I bought you something." Kyoma walked slowly to her, her face blank. Auntie held up a new dress, sky blue, fake lace, too big for her size. "I want us to go to church tomorrow. People haven't seen you in weeks. They're beginning to ask too many questions." Kyoma nodded. Auntie raised her brow. "You're not going to say thank you?" "Thank you," Kyoma said, voice flat. "Good girl," Auntie smiled. "Now go wash. I want you looking presentable." As Kyoma walked away, she didn't miss the way Auntie watched her. Like a hawk. Like someone trying to figure out what she knew. Later that night, Kyoma waited until the compound was dark again. The phone rang at the usual time. She picked immediately and whispered, "I found the recordings." The man on the other end went silent for a few seconds. "You're sure?" "Yes." "Good girl. Listen to me. I'm going to get you out." Kyoma didn't say anything. "You don't believe me?" he asked. "I want to," she said. "But I'm not a child. If Auntie senses anything, she won't wait. She'll do what she did to Uncle." "I won't let that happen," he said firmly. "I used to be a journalist before all this. I have people who can help. But I need something solid to show them. I have the clips. I need more. Proof of where she goes. Who she meets. That house, does she have a study? A box where she keeps papers?" Kyoma thought. Then she remembered, the locked drawer in Auntie's bedroom. She'd seen it once, half open, stuffed with brown envelopes and plastic ID cards. "I know where," she whispered. "But I'll have to wait till she leaves again." "Do it. But be careful. If she finds out, this whole thing falls apart." Kyoma ended the call. For the next 3 days, she watched. She cleaned. She obeyed. She played dumb. And Auntie, feeling like she had control again, relaxed. Then came Sunday. Church service was long. Hot. Kyoma sat stiffly beside Auntie, eyes lowered. But her mind was moving fast. She knew where the keys were kept under the vase in Auntie's wardrobe. She knew when Auntie napped after service, when the heat made the whole house heavy with sleep. When they returned home, Auntie cooked rice and stew and gave Kyoma a full plate. That hadn't happened in months. Kyoma ate it slowly, eyes on the kitchen clock. Then, just like always, Auntie took her wrapper, tied it tightly around her chest, and went into her room. Kyoma counted the minutes. 20. 30. No sound. She crept down the hallway and turned the knob. Auntie's room smelled of body cream and menthol. The curtains were drawn. She lay on the bed, eyes closed, chest rising gently. Kyoma tiptoed to the wardrobe, lifted the vase, and found the key. Her hands shook as she slipped it into the drawer and turned it. It opened with a click. Inside were papers, photos, receipts, a ledger book, and at the very back, a brown envelope marked, Darugo. She took pictures of everything, every page, then slid them back exactly as they were, locked the drawer, returned the key, fixed the vase, and tiptoed back to her room. The moment the door closed behind her, her knees gave way. She had done it. She had evidence. Now the only thing left was to send it. But she didn't know what Auntie had planned for the next day. And it would come fast. Faster than she was ready for. Morning came with a strange calm. Kyoma woke before the roosters. The air in the kennel was damp and heavy, like it knew something was coming. She sat up slowly, back stiff, eyes scanning the compound. It was still dark, but not the peaceful kind. It was the kind that waits to be broken. A few minutes later, the back door creaked open. Auntie Nkairu stepped outside in her long brown wrapper, tying her headscarf. Her face looked different. Less tired. Sharper. She wasn't holding her phone, or her bag, or her usual cup of hot water with lemon. She just stood there, staring at Kyoma, like she had already made up her mind about something. "You'll follow me to the mechanics today," she said without greeting. "I need you to help carry something." Kyoma didn't answer. Her chest tightened. "Follow her? To where?" "Yes, Ma," she replied quietly. The moment Auntie went back inside, Kyoma scrambled to the coupe, pulled out the phone, and checked it. Battery was at 23%. The night before, she had sent the pictures of the documents through a hidden file transfer app to a contact the man on the phone gave her. But the recordings, those were still on the device. She hesitated. Something about today felt wrong. She stared at the phone, then looked around. Then, suddenly, she had an idea. There was an old, broken lamp near the back wall of the compound. Nobody touched it. Its wires were fried, and the cover was half melted from a forgotten fire long ago. Kyoma took the phone and wrapped it in a plastic bag. Then she pulled apart the base of the lamp, shoved the phone deep inside, and pushed the plastic wires back around it to make it look untouched. She wiped her hands and ran back just as Auntie's voice rang out from the kitchen. "Kyoma, you think I won't call you again? I'm coming, Ma." She changed quickly and followed Auntie to the car. The drive was long and quiet. Auntie didn't say where they were going. Kyoma noticed the road was different. They weren't heading toward the mechanic. They passed the old market. Then the filling station. Then they turned into a narrow bush road. Kyoma's heart began to race. She looked at Auntie, who kept her eyes fixed on the road. Her face was like stone. "Where are we going?" Kyoma asked. "To see someone." Kyoma swallowed. "Who?" Auntie didn't answer. The car bumped along the dirt path. Bushes scraped the windows. They drove for what felt like forever, until the trees started closing in. Then Auntie stopped the car near an abandoned building, one of those colonial-looking houses with moss climbing up the walls and rusted roofing sheets. "Come down," she said. Kyoma stepped out slowly, her eyes scanning everything. "Why are we here?" she asked again. Auntie turned to her with a tired smile. "You think I don't know you've been hiding something?" Kyoma froze. "You've been acting clever. Smarter than before. You suddenly started talking less, watching more. You think I don't notice?" Kyoma didn't move. She didn't blink. "Where is it?" Auntie asked, voice dropping. "The phone." "I don't know what you're talking about." Auntie moved closer, slow and deliberate. Obinna wasn't smart, but he was stubborn. "And now, you're doing the same thing. But let me tell you something. Kyoma, this world is not kind to girls like you. No parents. No protection. No voice." "I'm not like him," Kyoma said, voice shaking but steady. Auntie leaned in, close enough for Kyoma to smell the sour scent of her sweat. "You're exactly like him. That's why I need to stop you before you become a problem." Before Kyoma could respond, the front door of the abandoned building creaked open. 2 men stepped out. One was tall and round-bellied. The other had a scar running down his cheek. Both looked like they'd done things they didn't speak about. Kyoma's stomach dropped. "What are they doing here?" "They work for me," Auntie said. "You're going to stay with them for a while. Just until I clean things up." "No," Kyoma shouted, stepping back. But Scarface grabbed her arm. "Let me go," she screamed. "Keep her quiet," Auntie snapped. The man slapped his hand over her mouth. Kyoma kicked, twisted, bit his finger, and broke free. She ran. Fast. Into the bush. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't care. Branches scratched her arms. Thorns tore her wrapper. Her bare feet hit roots and rocks, But she didn't stop. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Curses. Branches breaking. She ducked under a fallen log, crawled through a muddy ditch, and didn't look back. Somewhere, she saw a small stream and crossed it. Then she hid under a thick cluster of ferns and held her breath. The men ran past, shouting. She waited. Counted to 50. Then to 100. Silence. When she was sure they were gone, she stood up and ran again, this time in the opposite direction. After what felt like hours, she reached a road. A man on a motorbike slowed down when he saw her. Small girl, what happened to you? You're bleeding. I need help, she gasped. Please take me to Odenigbo Street. Number 7. That's Faro. Please. The man looked at her, then nodded. Climb. She got on, holding tight. It was the address the man on the phone had given her in case of danger. When they reached, the rider knocked 3 times on the black gate, paused, then knocked twice again. The gate opened a crack. A woman peered out, then her eyes widened. Kyoma? She nodded, exhausted. The woman pulled her in fast and shut the gate. You're safe, she said. We've been waiting. Inside the compound, 2 men stood near the door. One of them was the man who had called her. He stepped forward slowly, eyes filled with something between relief and anger. You shouldn't have come alone. I had no choice, Kyoma whispered. She tried to get rid of me. He guided her inside. The room was simple. Fan spinning. A small fridge. A table full of papers. You have the recordings, he asked. I hid the phone, she said. In the lamp. I had to. He turned to the others. We'll go tonight. Get it. Before she finds it. Kyoma sat on the small bed, legs trembling. She wasn't safe yet. But she had escaped. She had fought back. And for the first time since everything started, the darkness inside her didn't feel like fear. It felt like fire. The air inside the safe house was still. No TV, no chatter, just the quiet hum of a standing fan. Kyoma sat near the edge of the bed, her knees pulled close, watching the man on the phone as he spoke in low tones to someone she couldn't see. He wasn't like the others in Auntie's world. His shirt was tucked in neatly, and his voice had this calm weight to it, like someone who had seen a lot but refused to flinch. His name was Nonso. She had heard it over the phone once, but now it sat in her chest like a seed, small but ready to grow. Nonso ended the call and looked at her. We'll go back tonight for the phone. We'll get everything out. Kyoma nodded, but inside, her heart was racing. What happens after that? She asked. Nonso exhaled. We bring it to someone who can use it, people in the media, people in law. We'll expose her. Kyoma's eyes narrowed. Will she pay for what she did to Uncle? That's the plan, he said. But she noticed it, the small hesitation in his voice, the flicker in his eyes. Doubt. She's connected, isn't she? Kyoma said, voice quiet. Nonso didn't lie. Yes. Kyoma pressed her palms against her knees. Then we need more than just proof. He studied her. What are you thinking? I'm thinking she'll wriggle out unless the whole truth comes out. Not just what she did to Uncle. But who helped her. Nonso nodded slowly. You're right. That's why I'm taking you to someone. He left the room briefly, came back with a woman. She had deep lines on her forehead and wore a loose wrapper that dragged on the tiled floor. She knelt beside Kyoma and touched her cheek gently. My name is Adaku, she said softly. I'm here to help. Kyoma didn't respond. She just watched her. We work with girls like you, Adaku continued. Girls who've been through things they never should have seen. But we don't only give safety, we give power back. That word stayed in Kyoma's mind, power. She hadn't felt it in months. Maybe years. That night, Nonso left with 2 men, armed with torches and wrapped phones. Kyoma didn't go with them. They said it was too dangerous, and she didn't argue. Her head was still pounding from running through the bush, and her left ankle was swollen. While they were gone, Adaku gave her soup. She couldn't eat it. Instead, she sat in a corner with a warm cloth wrapped around her shoulder, and for the first time in forever, she closed her eyes and slept, not the kind of sleep that comes from weakness, but the kind where your body says, "It's okay now." When she woke, it was almost dawn. The front door creaked. Nonso stepped in, face tired but lit with something that looked like quiet victory. He raised the phone. Kyoma stood up fast. "You found it." He nodded. "Exactly where you said it would be. You're smart." But Kyoma wasn't focused on the praise. "Did she see you?" "No," he said. "But someone saw us." Her heart sank. "Who?" "One of the boys that hang around the compound. We think he ran to her." Kyoma's blood turned cold. "She'll know I escaped." "She already does," Nonso said. "We checked your room. It's upside down. She's looking for you." Kyoma felt the walls move. For a second, she couldn't breathe. "But she won't find you here," Adaku said calmly. "Not unless someone inside betrays us. And no one here is interested in money." Still, the fear lingered. "What if she doesn't stop?" Kyoma whispered. "What if she sends people again?" Nonso crouched down to her level. "Then we go louder. Public. Fast. She won't risk anything once this story becomes too big to hide." He opened the phone, loaded the recordings, the documents, and then showed her something new, a video. Grainy footage from a nearby CCTV camera. It showed Auntie meeting someone outside a black SUV. It was Chief Derugo. She was handing him a file. He handed her an envelope. Kyoma's hands curled into fists. "She sold Uncle's land," she said. "That's what they were hiding." Nonso nodded. "We traced the account. The money was transferred through 5 different names. All fake. But the final stop was her own business account. She slipped. And the land? Already in Derugo's name. But if we prove she coerced Obinna, or if we prove she was behind his disappearance." Kyoma cut in. "He's dead, isn't he?" Silence. Nonso didn't answer. That silence told her everything. Tears didn't come this time. Only heat. The kind that boils behind your eyes but doesn't spill. "We need to bring them down," she said. Adaku stepped closer. "Are you ready to be seen?" Kyoma turned to her. "What do you mean?" "We'll go to the media. But it won't be easy. You'll have to speak. On record. In front of cameras. Tell your story." Kyoma hesitated. A part of her wanted to run and hide again. But a bigger part, fiercer, older than her years, had already said yes. "If I speak," she said, "will people believe me?" Adaku smiled gently. "Not everyone. But enough will." Kyoma looked at the phone again. The files. The recordings. Her uncle's voice. And she knew. She wasn't just telling her story. She was finishing his. Later that week, Nonso drove her to a quiet compound at the edge of town. Inside was a small office filled with wires and cameras. A woman in a plain Ankara blouse stepped forward and shook her hand. "I'm Kelechi," she said. "I tell stories the people try to bury." They set up 2 chairs. Lights. A plain background. Kyoma sat down. Her heart was racing again. Kelechi leaned forward. "Are you ready?" Kyoma nodded. The camera light turned red. And for the first time, her voice, small but strong, began to rise. She told them everything. About Auntie. About the kennel. About Obinna. She didn't cry. Not once. Her words shook, but they landed strong. And when it was over, Kelechi said nothing for a long moment. Then she reached over and held her hand. "Thank you," she said. "You just lit a fire no one can put out." By the end of the week, the video was everywhere. Kyoma's face wasn't shown. Her name wasn't revealed. But the story swept through the town like wildfire. People asked questions. Police opened a case. And Auntie Kairu? She vanished. But Kyoma knew this wasn't the end. It was just the spark. The war had started. The days that followed the interview felt like stepping into a storm that was both terrifying and electric. Kyoma stayed inside the safe house, but the walls seemed to pulse with every whisper, every footstep, every knock on the door. Her mind replayed the moments under those bright lights, the feeling of the camera's gaze like 1,000 eyes burning into her skin. She wasn't sure if she was brave or just desperate. Maybe both. Nonso was there every day, sometimes with news, sometimes with silence. Adaku checked on her constantly, making sure she ate, reminding her to rest. But Kyoma barely touched the food. Her body was worn out, but her mind refused to shut down. One afternoon, while the sky was a dull grey, Nonso brought something new, a stack of printed pages and a small USB drive. "This is the first batch of responses," he said quietly. "From the media, from lawyers, from people who want to help." Kyoma took the papers, hands trembling slightly. Letters from strangers who believed her, offers of legal aid, messages from women who had survived worse. The weight of it settled over her like a thin blanket, comforting but not enough to stop the ache inside. Then Nonso lowered his voice. "There's a problem." She looked up. "What kind of problem?" "The people who worked for Auntie. They're coming after us. They want to find you. They've already asked around." Kyoma's breath hitched. "They won't get me. We have to be smarter. You can't stay here." The safe house, once a refuge, now felt like a cage. She needed to move. Adaku helped pack a small bag for her, just a few clothes, some money, a bottle of water. Before Kyoma left, she pressed something into her hand. A small carved wooden figure of a bird. "For protection," she said softly. The journey to the new place was long and nerve-wracking. They traveled through dusty roads, hidden paths, and quiet villages where no one knew her name. The new home was a simple compound surrounded by thick walls and high trees. It smelled of earth and rain. Here, Kyoma was introduced to others, women who had stories written in their scars and laughter. Each of them had fought their own battles and won, or were still fighting. They welcomed her quietly, sharing food, stories, and sometimes silence. Kyoma learned to sleep again, slowly. She practiced walking without flinching, smiling without fear. But the memory of Auntie's voice, sharp and cold, never fully left her. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, she sat with Nonso outside the compound. The air was heavy with the smell of wet soil and smoke from distant fires. "Do you think she'll come for you?" Kyoma asked. Nonso didn't answer at once. "She's powerful. Dangerous. But the more she hunts, the more she shows she's afraid." Kyoma looked at him. "What about Obinna? What do you think really happened to him?" Nonso's face tightened. "We have leads. But nothing solid yet." The silence stretched between them. "Do you think we'll find him?" Kyoma whispered. Nonso shook his head slowly. "I don't know. But I promise you, we'll try. We owe him that much." Kyoma nodded. The fire inside her flickered again, stronger now. Not just for herself, but for the man who had fought so hard and disappeared like smoke. The next morning, she was woken by a soft knock on the door. It was Kelechi, holding a notebook and a phone. "We're planning something," she said with a spark in her eyes. "A big story that will shake everything." Kyoma sat up, heart pounding. "This isn't just about exposing your aunt anymore," Kelechi explained. "It's about changing the way people see girls like you, girls who survive, who fight back. We want to give you a voice that can't be ignored." Kyoma smiled faintly. "I'm ready." 4 days, they worked together. Kelechi helped Kyoma write down everything, her thoughts, her fears, her dreams. The story wasn't easy to tell. Sometimes the memories came crashing down like waves, and Kyoma's hands would shake as she spoke. But Kelechi was patient, gentle, never rushing. One night, while they were reviewing the notes, Kyoma looked out the window at the quiet village. The moon was full, casting silver light over the trees. She felt a strange mix of peace and hunger. "Do you think I'll ever go home?" she asked. Kelechi looked at her thoughtfully. "Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling. And you're building a new one, right here." Kyoma nodded, though a part of her still longed for the house where she grew up, for the laughter that once filled the air before silence took over. But the next day, everything shifted. A letter arrived, slipped under the door. Kyoma picked it up, hands frozen. It was from Auntie Kairu. The words were simple, but cold. "You can't hide forever." Fear wrapped itself around Kyoma's heart. The hunt was far from over. And now, the game had changed. She wasn't just running. She was preparing to fight. The letter was thin, almost like a whisper sliding through the cracks of her sanctuary, but its words echoed loudly in Kyoma's mind. "You can't hide forever." Simple, sharp, and chilling. Those 6 words carried a weight that pressed down on her chest, heavier than any chain. Kyoma sat on the edge of the worn wooden bench inside the compound's courtyard, staring at the paper as if it held some secret code she needed to crack. The sky was still pale with morning light, but the world outside felt colder, darker, like the sun itself was afraid to shine on her. Nonso came out of the small office, his expression grave when he saw the letter in her hands. "Did you read it?" he asked quietly. She nodded, voice barely above a whisper. "She knows I'm here. She's watching." Nonso's jaw tightened. "That means she's scared." Kyoma's eyes met his. "But what if she sends people? What if she's not just watching?" Nonso sat beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "Then we make sure you're not alone." Those words should have comforted her. But the fear crawling beneath her skin was stubborn, and it refused to be soothed. Adaku arrived with fresh cups of tea, the aroma of ginger and lemon filling the air. She settled beside Kyoma, eyes kind but fierce. "This is the moment we have been preparing for," Adaku said, her voice calm but full of iron. "You have the truth. The people are starting to listen. You're no longer invisible." Kyoma traced the rim of her cup with a trembling finger. "But what if they come tonight? What if I'm not ready?" Adaku looked out toward the tree line where shadows lengthened. "Then we fight. We do not run again." The promise in her voice felt like a spark catching dry grass. That night, the compound was alive with hushed voices and quiet footsteps. Everyone moved with a purpose, eyes sharp and minds alert. Windows were barred, gates locked tight. The women who had once been shadows themselves were now warriors, standing guard like silent sentinels. Kyoma stood near the back wall, listening to the night sounds, crickets chirping, the distant call of a night bird, and beneath it all, the pounding of her heart. She thought of Obinna, her uncle, and the promise to find the truth about what happened to him. The fire inside her had grown from a flicker to a blaze, fueled by anger, hope, and the stories of every woman who had survived before her. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes. A sharp whisper. Then footsteps. "Get ready." Nonso's voice cut through the silence. Kyoma's breath caught. Figures emerged, 3 men, moving quickly but cautiously. The women gathered near the entrance, forming a barrier. Their faces were fierce, eyes burning with the strength of every fight they had ever fought. One of the men stepped forward, voice low but demanding. "Where is she? We know she's here." Adaku's voice was steady. "You're wasting your time." Kyoma stood behind her, fists clenched, heart pounding like a drum. The men hesitated, then lunged forward. What happened next was a blur of movement, shouts, the clash of bodies, the sharp sting of pain and fear mixed with something else. Kyoma found herself in the thick of it, pushed to the ground, breath knocked out. But the women didn't break. They fought with everything they had, pushing the men back. One of the attackers tried to grab Kyoma's arm. She twisted, slapped, kicked with a desperation she hadn't known she had. The man stumbled, and Kyoma scrambled up, running toward the gate where Nonso was waiting. The gates slammed shut behind them as the men retreated into the night, defeated but not gone. Kyoma's chest heaved. Adaku appeared at her side, blood on her cheek but eyes blazing. "That's the last time they come without paying," she said. For the first time in days, Kyoma laughed, a sharp, wild sound that surprised even her. It was the sound of someone who had faced the darkness and refused to be swallowed. But the battle had changed something inside her. She no longer felt like a frightened girl trapped in a kennel. She was a woman ready to stand, ready to fight. The next morning, as the sun rose with a soft orange glow, Kyoma sat with Nonso and Kelechi. The story was spreading faster now, voices rising, people asking questions. Auntie Nkairu was becoming a name spoken with fear and anger. "We have to push harder," Kelechi said. "The media needs to see her face. The police need to act." Nonso nodded. "We'll give them proof. The recordings, the documents, everything." Kyoma looked out the window at the rising sun, feeling the weight of what was coming. This was no longer just about her or Obinna. It was about justice. About truth. About breaking the silence that had held them captive for too long. And she was ready. Because now, Kyoma knew, some fires don't just burn. They consume. Thanks for watching this powerful episode. If Kyoma's story moved you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. We're just getting started. Tell us in the comments, what country are you watching from and what time it is over